All right, stay positive. Stay positive. Stay positive. You know, at what point do you actually just convince yourself of things? I need to figure that out.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds with myself, Jeff Carr. I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've turned an addiction to this team into information for you, for better or for worse. You know, it's been a long life as a Reds fan, and quite frankly, I felt this more than I felt amazing stuff for this team, but we're going to work through it here today on today's Locked On Reds podcast. I've been doing this for like 6 years, by the way, so this isn't new to me. I'm doing it daily here on the Locked On Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We are here with you, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss, whether they get one hit, no hit, 10 hits, 14 hits. Yeah, we're here because we love this team, and quite frankly, we're crazy. And on today's Locked On Reds podcast, the Reds are reportedly making some calls on trades. What could they be looking for at this early juncture in the season? Also, good news is there to be found for those who really want to dig for it. So we will dig for it coming up a little bit later on. But first, let's vent. We got to vent. I mean, that's how we're going to start it off. Actually, we're going to start it off this way because game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And, all right. Let's let it all out. I encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube, please jump in the comments section. Let me know what you're thinking. Let's vent, whatever it is. This is not going to be Jeff's sell me why hour. You know, we're going to talk about reasons to be optimistic, but I'm not going to force optimism on you. 162 games is a long season. It really is. And it's things like this that make it feel so much longer, because the Reds lineup has really thrown some cold water on Reds country. It's thrown on me. It's thrown on you. If you love this team, you came into this season with expectations. You came into this season looking at the talent and saying, boy, things could happen here. And this lineup has stalled all of it. To set you up, the Reds are now 2 games under 500. This is the first time since June 13th of last year that the Reds are this far under 500. And that was even their 4th win in a row during their 12-game win streak in June. And that goes to show some positivity. We'll talk about that later on, though, because we're venting. We're venting. Positive things coming later. I should have gotten more coffee. Anyway, yes, the Reds are swept by the Orioles. They score 2 runs in 3 games. And 11-1 is the final score of Sunday's game. Quite frankly, it felt like that game was out of reach after the first inning with the way that this team is hitting right now. And that is unfortunate. You've got far too much talent in CES and Jeimer Candelario, guys that are just really struggling at the plate right now. And I know CES had a hit. He's had hits in back-to-back games. We'll talk a little bit about him in the optimism section. But again, he is not part of the overall solution, as it were. And just the lineup as a whole is what has killed the momentum. It's what's killed any positive vibes. Feels like the Reds completely have to rebuild whatever they had built to this point. And I know it's not much. I know it's only a month into the season, and I know that it's very hard for any team to get to a point where you just feel super confident about a 162-game season after only seeing 25 to 30 games. There's just far too many more to be had. But where the Reds are right now, if you are frustrated, you are justified. There is no reason for anyone. And I saw this going around Reds Twitter people trying to attack realistic and maybe even slightly pessimistic people for their thoughts and saying, well, you're not built for 162 games. We're fans. We're allowed to be what we are. And I'm optimistic. I've always been an optimistic Reds fan. But it's stretches like this 5-game losing streak, the being swept by the Orioles the way that they were. The Reds pitched well. They got no help from their lineup. In fact, looking kind of at this lineup as a whole and where things are, after yesterday, dead last. Bottom of the league. Bottom of Major League Baseball in batting average. They're batting .210 as a team. .210. Yeah. Yeah, sends a chill up my spine. Makes me feel some kind of weirdness. The Reds have 5 guys in the lineup who are sub 200. Now, a couple of those guys, and I will remind people of this until the cows come home. A couple of these guys shouldn't be out there as much as they are. They are because of necessity. Santiago Espinal. Quite frankly, Luke Maile is getting a lot more playing time than I think he should. And part of that was Tyler Stevenson getting hit on the hand, but I almost feel like the catcher has been relegated to, okay, it's about who's on the mound and who works best with what catcher, and whatever they do at the plate is just gravy, which Tyler Stevenson been much better, hasn't had the results yet, been getting unlucky. But Luke Maile is just, man, he's not there right now. But Santiago Espinal, Stuart Fairchild, Nick Martini, those aren't guys that we're counting on in the long run. And it's a very nice talking point to be like, oh my gosh, they got 5 guys under 200. The 2 guys I care about. Well, 3 guys. There's 6. I can't count. 5 guys yesterday, but 6 total. Will Benson is now under 500, or now under 200. Jeimer Candelario, and CES. And this is the spot where I really want to focus in on Candelario, because I think that Will Benson is, I thought he was going to break out this weekend, but I think he's close to a breakout. He's still hitting the ball hard. He's still getting a lot of good barrels and a lot of good looks. It's just he hasn't got the results yet. He'll be fine. Jeimer Candelario is not. And we talk about, Baseball Reference a lot, talk about Fangraphs a lot. I love the website Baseball Savant. It gives you all of this extra stuff to marry with the eye test, what you're seeing on the field. Be like, man, what am I seeing? Like, is there a statistical way to kind of express that? And Jeimer Candelario is the perfect example of this. Like, I talk about Will Benson, Tyler Stevenson, and CES like I know a breakout is coming. It hasn't come yet, and it's been frustrating. But I know it's coming because I see good things from them, and they hit the ball hard according to the numbers. I don't see good things from Jeimer Candelario, and the numbers aren't good. League average exit velocity is 2.5 miles higher than where he is right now. He doesn't barrel the ball up. He's not centering the ball. He's not making good contact. He is whiffing a lot. He's chasing a lot. And I sit here on this podcast last week, I believe. See, last week or 2 weeks ago. And I told you that Jeimer Candelario starts slow. He's starting really slow this year. It's the kind of slow that makes you wonder if he's going to be able to speed up. Not going to lie. That's going to be tough. And we might talk about this a little bit later on in the show. Like, when is enough? How long they've given him a nice contract, sizable contract. They're not going to jump out from it after a month. But when do you look at other options? Relegate him to like a rotational guy or something. I don't know. That's for another podcast. I want to discuss that with Steve later on this week. But one thing to note, if you squint really hard when you look at this lineup, they've got the 3rd lowest batting average on balls in play at 266. League average is 299. And that's on a like year by year basis for the last 20 years. 299. They're 33 points below that. So maybe we can chalk that up as a reason for optimism. But something that really has to change, and in the ninth inning of Saturday night's game and the ninth inning of yesterday's game looked like the team that we've seen up until the point of this Orioles series that they turned into this doormat that the Orioles ran over. They were walking. They didn't walk hardly at all in this series until the ninth inning of Saturday night's game and the ninth inning of yesterday's game. But overall in the season, they have the third lowest on-base percentage in baseball as a team at .289. All of this is compounded by, okay, you don't hit the ball very much. You're not getting hits when you put the ball in play. You're making outs. So when you do get a hit, there's nobody on base to bring around. And this team is probably has a really, really good argument for being the best base running team in baseball. But you can't be good at base running if nobody's on the base to run. You know, I don't even know that's a pretty cold take right there. Lukewarm take. Look, time will tell, and hopefully time will help. But right now, you cannot deny the cold water that has been poured on you, on me, on Reds country as a whole by this lineup. However, there are reasons for optimism because you came here. You came here to Locked On Reds. By the way, thank you for doing that. Really appreciate you being on with me. You came here, and I'm an optimistic Reds fan. I'm going to give you some reasons for optimism. As much as you may or may not want to hear them, that's up to you. That's coming up next. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/locked on. Again, that's linkedin.com/locked on for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked on and get started. And we've all been there. It's the bottom of the ninth, and it's not looking good. In fact, us Reds fans are there right now. It's been a while that the scoreboards looked in our favor. Not really sure how we're going to figure this out, how we're going to dig deep, right? But that's when you tell yourself it's time to get back out there, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' cash as I possibly can. That's right, I'm talking about the hit game Monopoly Go. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and you should join in too. It lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the classic Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much you can do in this game. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and you can team up with them on community chests to earn some big paydays and some community events to help you rise up that leaderboard. So get back out there. Put on your game face and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and Google Play. You've got to check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel's app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And speaking of every day, shout out to our everydayers who are joining us here today. Let me know that you're an everydayer down in the comments section. And for our everydayers, coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, Steve will be back. Work schedules kind of mess with him here today, but he'll be back with me. We're going to discuss What do you do with Jeimer Candelario at this point? That's on the next Locked On Reds podcast. But let's jump into some optimism. Let's jump into the thing that you came to me for. Because quite frankly, if you came to me, you knew optimism was coming at some point. And we had to vent. We had to get it out. We had to say the thing, right? The frustrations that we've had with this lineup, had to say it. Because the optimism is the pitching. The fact that the Reds are pitching this good. Let's start with this because I know that the Reds are in the thick of it. I know that this is frustrated right now, but it's not time for the panic button. It's not time to be jumping ship and saying that this season is a waste and it's done and we're not making the playoffs, all this other stuff, because there are reasons to be optimistic, and it starts with pitching. Because all this team needs to do is hit, and they can go on a run. I firmly believe that. The starting pitching has been so good on this team. Now, you hate that they've wasted those starts. Can't get them back. Can't, copy paste them and say, well, let's get that start that we had on Friday from Hunter Green and put it on his next start, and then we'll score 5 runs, and Reds will get a win. Can't quite do that. But we know that moving forward, this starting pitching staff can do it. That is a big question we had about this season. I believe that this will continue, and they're getting Frankie Montas back. We're waiting to hear what the pitching order is for this Diamondback series that begins on Tuesday. As of right now, this moment that I'm recording, there is not been an announcement. I'm guessing we'll hear probably either Monday evening or Saturday, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon early, something like that. But the starting pitching staff has been phenomenal. Can't deny that. The other thing for me, and I am so shocked to hear this, but all of the reports are positive. All of the reports are that TJ Friedl has been working his butt off while his wrist has been healing. He's been running. He's been throwing because it was his non-throwing hand, so he was able to throw. All those things, he has been trying to keep up with literally every possible thing he can keep up with, except for the things that, he couldn't. So he's in fantastic shape. His rehab outing in Louisville has gone pretty well. He's hitting the ball. He's taking walks, things like that. The Reds are meeting with him today. Actually, I think they met with him yesterday, and are determining whether he can return tomorrow, Tuesday. Yeah. Think about that. I said, and I was adamant, that we wouldn't see him until June, maybe mid-June, because of the injury that he suffered. But because of the work that TJ Friedl put in, because of the leader that he is, because of the just freak of nature athlete that he is, he's recovered, he's healthy, and he's hitting the ball. It's not as if he came to Louisville and he hadn't hit the ball yet. He's hitting the ball. So I absolutely love to hear that. He could be back. And think of what this will do for the roster. There's a lot of folks who are just like, well, TJ Friedl by himself isn't going to help. Think of what this will do. You can put him in center, Benson and Fraley in the corners. You can move Steer back into the infield. You don't have to play Espinal. You don't have to play Fairchild because of TJ Friedl returning. And I advocated for, make sure that Spencer Steer gets as many at-bats and as many innings as he can in left field this year. Keep him comfortable. But right now, I'm advocating for what the Reds can do to have their best lineup out there. And if you have TJ Friedl and you can move Steer into the infield, you can have a lineup, especially against, this probably makes more sense against right-handers than left-handers. Left-handers, the lineup still remains an issue. But against right-handers, your outfield is Benson, Friedl, Fraley. Your infield, Candelario. We'll get to that. Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer at second, CES at first, India at DH, Stevenson at catcher. I like that. That's good. That's much better than what we've been seeing. You get Martini out of there. You get Espinal out of there. You get Fairchild out of there. Just with TJ Friedl coming back. So yeah, in a vacuum, is it one guy? Sure. But what he does and how the lineup moves with him back in it, much, much more like it. And speaking of CES, I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He now has a hit in 3 of his last 4 games. He is starting to kind of get this thing working. And he's a guy, and I mentioned this earlier, His batting average on balls in play, just specifically for CES, is 40 points below league average. He's getting unlucky. Baseball Savant still says he's hitting the ball hard. His average exit velocity is good. It's above league average. He's still barreling the ball. He could walk more, and that's kind of the big kryptonite, as it were, for him right now, is the fact that if he doesn't get a hit, he's not getting on base, period. He's got to figure out how to take a walk every now and then. Not saying he's got to become Joey Votto, but take a pitch every now and then. But with that, he's still super young in his career, so that's something that could still develop for him individually. All of this is just trending in the right direction. You're going to quote batting average to me all day, and I listed him as one of the guys who is currently hitting under 200. I don't expect that to continue. I still expect him to probably add 50, 60, maybe even 70 points of average by the time we're all said and done this year. That just means that the rest of the year is going to be a lot of fun to watch CES hit the ball. I believe that. I think he's gotten unlucky to this point, and he has shown that he can still be a key contributor for this team as long as the luck kind of catches up a little bit. Plus, his defense has been a plus. Fantastic plays that he has made over the Baltimore series. Some plays that I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I don't think Joey Votto's making those plays. I said it. Sorry. CES made some really freaking good plays with the glove this past weekend. It was really fun to see. And look, in the grand scheme of things, they've lost 5 in a row, but they're 2 games under 500. Last year, this time, 34 games in, there were 4 games under 500. And they still had a winning record at the end of the year and contended for a playoff spot. In fact, at one point in the season, they were in the wild card. I still think that they're fine. That's why I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm frustrated. But where the Reds are right now, they're in a much better spot than they've been. I think they were 500 after 34 games in 2021. But beyond that, this is a good spot to be in. Be around 500. And we said this with this gauntlet. It's not as if we didn't tell you that this gauntlet of a schedule wasn't going to test these guys. Just maintain 500. Be around 500 when the summer hits and you go on a run. The Reds were much lower than 2 games under 500 by the time they started their 12-game winning streak last year. And look at what that did for them. I mentioned that, yes, they are 2 games under 500 right now. The last time they were 2 games under 500 was June 13th of 2023. I honestly think that, 11-1 sucks, but 11-1 is 1 loss. And the Reds are only 2 games under 500. I think they're going to turn this around. Time is on their side for right now. Plus, Nick Krall is talking to other teams about trades? What? He is. So, let's look at who the Reds could be after coming up next. Look, I love baseball. I love baseball statistics, and I know baseball, at least for the most part. You know what I don't know? I don't know much about finances. I know that more money is better than less money. Although some might argue more money, more problems. But Yahoo Finance isn't here to argue that. They are here to help you raise your portfolio. They're help you become a better investor. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts, and it's all in one hub. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspective, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Join me. Download the Yahoo Finance app today and start taking control of your own finances. Start knowing what's going on. They're the #1 financial destination. YahooFinance.com. Again, that's YahooFinance.com. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. You can also get some written content about your Cincinnati Reds over at si.com/MLB/Reds. I'm writing there. James Rapin's writing there. Steve's writing there. Lots of great writers. Caleb Sisk. A lot of great written content for you over there at si.com/MLB/Reds. And trade, you say. I didn't say it. In fact, it was in the Inquirer, a report that Nick Krall has actually, pretty much done his due diligence. I'm not saying that they're close. The report here was talking with him before the game on Sunday, and it was written by Gordon Whitmire in the Inquirer saying that, he had quotes from Nick Krall that was like, yes, we have called on some players trying to, get what teams are looking for right now. Said just because the Marlins traded Luis Arraez doesn't necessarily mean that the market has begun for everyone. It's on a team-by-team basis, and it's a little bit of just due diligence on their part. But this is a stark contrast to what we have heard in years past. Stop me if you've heard this one before. If there were rumors about a Reds deal or rumors about are the Reds talking to this team or are the Reds calling on this player or whatever, most of the time you hear the Reds general manager say things like, well, not really. We're waiting till after the draft to really assess where we are, and then we'll move forward from there. Or we're waiting on so-and-so to come back from the injured list, and then we'll move forward from there. That's not what Nick Krall said. He said, yes, we're making calls. So there's only a couple of teams right now that you could really look at for that, though. That's the problem. And this is probably why he didn't get too crazy into what they might be looking for or who they could be talking to or what they're, what other teams are asking for from them. Because quite frankly, there's really only 4 teams that you can confidently say they're not playing for anything right now. And it's the Marlins, the White Sox, the Rockies, and the Angels. The Marlins, the White Sox, and Rockies are horrible. Their record's horrible. It's not getting much better for the rest of the year. The Angels have a bad record, but they also lost Mike Trout for a long time. You couple that together, they're not competing for much. So if we want to look at this, and this is just preliminary, this is something I want to talk with Steve about whenever he returns to the show. There's a couple of guys, not a lot. I'll be honest. I look at the Marlins and I look at the White Sox, and I'm like, who are you trading for at this point? All those guys are having a rough season, injury problems, things like that. You could maybe look at the Rockies and maybe look at Ryan McMahon. He plays third base, first base, second base, all that stuff. You can move him around the infield. And he's hitting pretty well so far this year. Career-wise, he's a 240, 250 hitter. Decent slugging percentage. He's hit over 20 homers in the last 3 seasons. So that's kind of nice. Not a whole lot of other guys I'm looking at the Rockies, though. Maybe. I really do like Elias Diaz, but, the Reds are pretty good at catcher. And they've made a lot about the fact that they kept Stevenson and Maile together with his pitching staff. I think Diaz could learn the pitching staff, and Diaz is a pretty good hitter, but probably not the guy that they're looking at. But Ryan McMahon, he's got a few years left on his deal, 29 years old, would be a guy that the Rockies would look to trade for a couple of prospects. Then I look at the Angels. The Angels got 2 guys that I'm interested in, one far more than the other, but the other will be interesting. The first guy, really interested if this were to be a thing, could the Reds get Luis Rengifo? I love Luis Rengifo. Like, as far as non-Mike Trout Angels players, that series that the Angels were here for a couple of games in Cincinnati, Luis Rengifo looked pretty good. And he can play anywhere on the infield. Position flexibility, there you go, check that box. And he's hitting pretty well so far this year. Typically a pretty good on-base guy as well. I'd like to see him. I don't know what that would cost, but he has 1 more year of team control after this. He's still on his rookie contract, 27 years old. But, you got to, if you're Nick Krall and you're calling the Angels, I'm trying to think. Perry Manassian. That's the name of their general manager. Nick Krall calls him up. Hey, Perry, how's it going, man? Yeah, look, I get it. Trout's hurt again. You guys probably ought to pack it up, right? Rebuild? Yeah? I got some guys. Got some prospects. What about Rengifo? What do you got? I don't know. Nick Krall probably doesn't talk like that. But, Luis Rengifo would be an amazing dude to look at. Or Brandon Drury? Look, he's not hitting well this year. He's not looked good. In fact, ever since leaving the Reds, he really wasn't all that great. Like, he was having a great first half of that season, and the Reds cashed in brilliantly. So do you go back to that well and see if you could get him for cheap, bring him back, see what he could do? I don't know. We know that he can hit at Great American. That'd be interesting. I'd wonder if the Reds could get him on a less expensive trade. But that's the thing. As of right now, the trade market is just not really open because of adding the extra playoff team, because of the fact that 7 teams from each league make the playoffs. There's a lot of teams that feel in it right now. I mean, heck, the Washington Nationals actually have a better record than the Reds at the moment, and we don't expect them to be a playoff team. But if you were to call them right now and be like, who are you selling? They'd be like, what are you talking about? We're 500. We're not selling. So that's why right now, as much as I love the report that the Reds are calling guys, I'm not thinking that anything is imminent. But this does give me good feelings about how the trade market could develop for the Reds between now and the trade deadline. Could be a lot of fun. Love to see Luis Rengifo, but I'm just kind of wishing at this point. We'll talk more about this with Steve when he returns tomorrow. I also want to talk to him about Jeimer Candelario and, what do you do with Jeimer Candelario at this point? That's going to be on the next Locked On Reds podcast, but that's going to be it for today's podcast. Thanks so much for checking out the Locked On Reds podcast today. Look, I hope if you're frustrated, you're not giving up on this team yet, because there's still plenty of reason to be excited. This is still going to be an amazing summer. It's just, right now, they ain't so great. They're in a bit of a slump. But they're going to be all right. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind me, I got Marty and Joe. As Joe always told Marty, man, Marty, these Reds can hit. They're going to hit now. Hopefully, they do that sooner rather than later. But you guys always know that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.